Hello, hello.
Hi, Candace.
How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Really good.
Hi, Sandy. Hi, Jackie.
Hi. Oh, more people coming. All right. So we can get started right away while everybody's kind of filing in. Today's topic, we are doing engaging and supporting underprepared students. And I didn't really do a PowerPoint or anything for this because it's an open discussion. But something really near and dear to my heart because of the fact coming in as a non-traditional student, being a student with disabilities, a whole bunch of things against me by all accounts. I think that I was one of the lucky ones that made it through, and I feel like there's a lot that kind of slipped through the cracks. And so I feel like this is a really important discussion, and hopefully we are able to take it further from here. Some of the things that I wanted to kind of see what people think, and some of the goals for this work group are going to be kind of defining what an underprepared student is. Is it just educational background and what they're lacking? Is it lack of materials? Even though now with Follow Access, a lot of that should be cleared up. And then also discussing how do we engage them? How do we support them? And on top of that, we've got a lot of people from Center for Student Success and tutoring and all of the wonderful things that we have available for us. We have them joining us today too, so they can kind of give some input on what we have available. So I would just like to kind of get it started with everyone, what do you think that an underprepared student is? How do you define that?
Temperature doesn't go up to 165 degrees at least. I think isn't that for chicken? No, that's for chicken. I don't know about student.
I feel like we are starting, like now it's, anything over 103 is then.
Oh shit, it's 1:30.
Indeed.
I'd start with the first thing that popped in my mind is I'm like first gen student, so not getting any support from parents or guardians when you're first coming to college.
Well, along those same lines, I agree. When I started college, I didn't know how to do anything. I didn't know how to go talk to my professors in their office hours. I was too scared to do all that. So being unprepared isn't always just financial. It's not always, do you have your books? But it's somebody saying to you, yeah, you should go talk to them if you need help. You should talk to them. That kind of stuff, I think, is part of not being prepared.
Underprepared to me also means the students that didn't learn how to even read textbooks very well, or some of the basic skills that students need to be successful, like how many hours they need to put into it, how to organize their thoughts and their time. Those align, those particular skills.
So for those just joining, we're kind of discussing what we think underprepared students are. So what are the other things that you guys feel like really, the lack of textbooks and materials and things like that, but like Jackie said, being a first gen student, when you have no idea of where to even start, who to ask for, all you know is you have a schedule and you're supposed to be someplace at some time. And hopefully you walk in the right building usually.
So I think, thank you for inviting me to this, by the way.
I think that when you talk about underprepared students, it's definitely a large, like a lot of things, is on a continuum. And I think that's a way that you can approach something like this. It doesn't mean it's the best way to. However we define underprepared students as an institution, you can benchmark what that means and, you know, almost break it down to check boxes. Do they hit this amount of boxes? They're more or less likely to persist or retain based on X, Y, or Z, which could be a good way to gather data from it. But like things that have been said earlier on already today in the short meeting so far is what, you know, is considered cultural capital. Do you have the cultural capital to be successful in this environment? Do you have the cultural capital to engage in this environment? And that's what you're talking about with experience with a lot of times with first generation college students, or not even just first generation college students. It could be anyone coming in here that's different. You know, we take for granted, I think a lot of times in higher education, acronyms we use, and not just that, but just the ease and transition with, again, just cultural capital. Like we understand certain things as fact without any basis for that, except for past experience in being in the higher education culture, right? Like we just take them for what they are. Whereas an outsider, be it a college student or someone just coming in to ask a question, they have no idea what the context of that is. And again, it's based on how they have acquired that capital in which to incorporate it into this culture that is higher education. So I think it's a combination of things. You have, again, that's why I say it's on a continuum. I think you have the capital piece, the culture piece. And then I think you also then have, I guess, capital in another sense, like resources. Like, do you have the ability to do that? I think the things that are more hard, that are, hey, can you pay for your internet? That's easier to fix than what would be the intrinsic things, or even extrinsic with someone's nuclear family or where they're from, their environment they're living in. Those things are much harder to deal with. And I think those things probably have a higher likelihood about persistence and retention. We've never taken a deep dive into that, but I'm guessing like this is what this is hopefully starting, where we can look at those individual things and again, start benchmarking where we see kind of that drop off with retention and persistence based on X, Y, and Z. So.
Thank you, Nate. What else? What are other people's thoughts? How do you define, if you're going to do a retention alert for a student who, say, you would consider them underprepared, what are the things that would come to your mind?
Okay.
I think, oh, go ahead. Well, I was just going to add, and this is an addition to what was said previously, but with the 7-week classes, I think a lot of students are they're just not ready to hit the ground running. And once they get behind, you know, it takes a lot of planning and time management to keep up to date. So unprepared to go at the speed and at the rate that we have to in a 7-week class.
All right. Anyone else have any how we define it kind of stuff, or moving on to how do you engage and support these students? So the ones that don't have, you know, the background, that are the first gen, that have no idea their way around higher ed in general. How do you start supporting them, even if it's not, you know, even if you're not their SEM teacher per se? Because I know a lot of us who have taught SEM can say that, you know, a lot of that is really navigating like JC particularly, but how do you get them on board when you're teaching a different discipline?
I wanted to piggyback on Janet's comment. I think just in general, the time management piece, particularly in this online environment, is huge. Just people finding space to work on homework that's quiet and uninterrupted, particularly those with families and all kinds of other issues. I think right now is just a major thing that none of us were prepared for. And trying to find ways for good time management, I think, is almost the most important thing at this stage.
Yeah, the students I've worked with at the Center for Student Success, many times when they come in at the beginning of the semester, they're just very flustered, very frustrated. Just seem so overwhelmed. And I think just asking them questions about how do they study, or how do they plan their study time, or what factors might affect their being able to accomplish their tasks. And when they see that, they themselves begin to acknowledge, oh, I need to do this or that. So asking them these questions allows them to really think about, how ready am I to do this? And many times, my colleagues at the CSS, we're almost pretty much like the coaches, the academic coaches, or just helping them along and explaining, okay, this works this way, or this is how you navigate. It's a lot. There's a lot of information that's just thrown at them very, very quickly at the beginning. And so just allowing them to maybe do it in chunks, accomplish the tasks in chunks. And I think that has been helpful for many students, even just a schedule of what tasks to accomplish first, or what the prioritize the tasks. So.
Virginia, do you think that, like, looking back at, say, last fall with the 7-week semesters, that students that were taking 7-week classes, were they coming in to CSS right at the beginning, or were they waiting till they were already faltering, or what was your experience?
I had one particular student who already had a learning disability, but he waited until about the 3rd week. So at that point, there was so much catching up to do. Thankfully, he persisted. We met, and I think Kim also worked with the student, but he did persist, and he was quite successful in the class I tutored him. So. And also, he kept all his appointments, which was really great. He kept all the tutoring appointments. I'm really quite proud of him for persevering. Yeah.
So is there any faculty that have any input on when they know that students start seeking out help, or do you usually push them to go do it, or how does that work?
I guess I'll jump in. Sorry, I don't have my video on, but I've got like major sun coming in right now. So one thing, speaking for someone who has a program, one thing that's hard for us is that a lot of the material that we're covering isn't something that they can be tutored in. So it's not something that they can go to CSS and get that help with. So that really falls back on us as far as tutoring one-on-ones. I spend a lot of time with my medical assisting students, having to do one-on-one Zooms, and it really is just individualizing plans for each student, because every student is so different, and some are really great at their clinical skills and can't take a test to save their life. And then we have the other ones that are great at bookwork, and I can't get them to understand how to talk to patients. So it's just a kind of a different monster in itself, and I'd have no perfect solution for it. Just, I guess, looking at each student as an individual and seeing what they need.
So I think
Kristen.
Virginia and, oh, go ahead.
Oh, no.
Virginia and Sandra could probably talk about how many students I send to them every semester, but I just have it built into my course. Like if we were on campus, I would just walk students over. And I do have it in my course that one thing they have to do this semester is they have to work with a writing fellow or one of the writing tutors on a paper. And I just found that by holding their hand and just getting them in the door, they figure out really quickly that it's a very great place to come and to get help on homework and things. And so it used to just be with the students that needed the extra help, and now I just make it across the board and just build it into the course because they could all use it. And I think that it's the they're scared, they're unsure. I even this last semester, a student was emailing me, and even though I've given them the information of like how to contact them, he didn't know what to say. So I ended up writing out like a sample script of what to say when he called, because he didn't know. He didn't know how to talk to them. He had never like reached out just blindly before to somebody on the campus. And I think it's those little things that help, because once they do it, they realize that it's not so scary. But it does take a lot of time, and I'm still learning how to do that now that we're in a virtual environment. It's a little different than just saying, hey, you got 15 minutes, let's go walk over, you know, to the Oasis Center or wherever we need to go. So I don't know if anybody has any ideas about what we can do to do this better online.
I think in the past with SEM or FYS, whichever one, I always made it a point, like especially the face-to-face classes on Central Campus, was to walk them over to CSS, introduce them to everyone there, show them that they usually have candy there and stuff, and then also show them the health department. That was one of my other things, like our health clinic and where that's located. And but I think that yeah, getting students in the door and getting them there and getting them comfortable with seeking out help is, you know, you can lead a horse to water kind of thing. What about, I was going to ask Kristen, your time that you're spending with the medical assisting students, do you think that you're spending a huge chunk of that, like one-on-one tutoring time, teaching them study skills or study habits? Like, how much of it is that, would you say?
Actually, most of the one-on-one time is teaching them how to use a computer. So that's, I think, what I spend half my time doing is that kind of stuff. It's actually more technical stuff. Fortunately, in our program, we don't do traditional lectures in our program. We didn't when we were face-to-face. We believe strongly in hands-on learning, and the best way to learn is to teach. So our students do a lot of interactive type things. So we use MindTap extensively. We use cross-branding, which I'll be talking about this afternoon. There's just a lot of variety for our different learning styles. And I always start out the semester doing a VARC learning inventory, even though they've already done it in SEM. I have them do it again to see if there's any changes. And then I can kind of, when I see students struggling, then I'm like, okay, so this is your learning style. So let's focus more on using, the reader on MindTap, or, let's do these activities and focus on this more, or use the Kahoot that I created for you to practice with. But I will say though, too, what's very different about us is we're looking at a much smaller group of students. So we don't have 3 sections of 30 students. We have 1 section of a cohort. So it's a lot easier to have that one-on-one time anyway.
I wanted to just clarify something, because looking at the chat, just so everyone knows that may not, there are writing fellows who are peer tutors, wonderful peer tutors. And then there are the writing tutors, the faculty writing tutors, and the CSS. Those are 2 different sets of people that you can send your students to. And I also wanted to pick up for a moment on what Janet was saying about leading people by the hand. It's that emotional element of reminding students you're not the only one that is, suffering like this. You can do it. It's, it's that coaching, the emotional coaching of building them up, because they may have been falling behind previously in their lives, and they're really, frustrated at this point of, being in college.
You can see all the lights on if you want.
So I just want,
Well, I've got to listen at the Robertsons at 4.
I would like to say something. I was in college probably
I
before
always do.
some of you were born. When I was in high school, I think they prepared us more for a
Yeah,
college
nothing.
track if we were deciding if that was what we were wanting to do. Because when I went to college, I didn't feel like it was as stressful as it is now. You know what I mean? The transition.
What time?
So I don't know if that's something that's you know, we had, when we were in high school, we had to say if we wanted to go to college or not. And then we, like, when I was a junior and a senior, we had, like, they called them mini courses, but they were, you know, 9-week courses or whatever to prepare us for how that might be in college. So I felt like I was pretty prepared in that way, and it didn't seem to be as shocking. And since I've been in student services and the CSS, it just seems that students, are kind of like, they don't understand how they might only have a class maybe once a week. And now, of course, we're online and everything, but, you know, they'd just be like, you know, I only go there once a week, you know, is that what I do? Or like when the semester's over, they're just like, is that all? I mean, they don't understand how that works. So that's what I've noticed. But of course, I'm a lot older than everybody. And that was my experience from my time, you know, when me and Moses were in school together, and we, you know, wrote on the stone tablets. But I just felt like I was maybe more prepared, and it just seems like they don't understand how that transition works. And I know that there's STEM classes and everything, and that helps with that, but it just doesn't seem like they're prepared in any kind of way.
Yeah, I agree. I think that just in general, like even the students coming directly out of high school, in my experience, they just really have no idea of what they're doing, whether they're, you know, when they're supposed to turn things in, the fact that the syllabus is their, you know, Bible for the course, and how to make it through. And that's, I always told students for going to the centers for student success, if you have a rubric for an assignment that you need help with, take that with you. If you have, like, take your syllabus with you, or at least know what class you're in and the section. So that way, if somebody needed to look it up, they can at least look that up. What else, what do you guys think for engaging these kind of students? Like what is there that can be done?
I think I can speak to that. I apologize, I don't have my video on. So I don't have sunshine. I just have poor internet connection. So if I turn my video on, I'll likely freeze. So in terms of engaging, sometimes that's really tough. So just from a center perspective, when I'm meeting with students, oftentimes you need to earn a little like street cred with them, right? Before they'll listen to you, or before they'll follow your directions. So I've become fairly good at observing students, whether it's a piece of jewelry or a t-shirt, especially with populations of students that I deal with that may be on the spectrum and may not be as forthcoming in conversations or seeking help, and that I'll find a way to connect with them, or even if it's pretending like, oh man, I love that Pac-Man t-shirt. That's my favorite video game, or, you know, just something to get that connection going. They're more ought to listen to you and not necessarily follow directions, but yeah, follow your direction. If they think you're okay, then they'll usually keep coming back. And so it really comes back to that connection word, I think, at least for me in the center and through the years that I've worked with students. If I can find something to connect with them on, they remember that, and they remember that you took enough time to notice something that small in detail about them.
I know it's day 2 of faculty learning days, and a lot of people are just over it and here because they're supposed to do something. But what do you guys think though? Like,
I'll just piggyback off of what Monica was saying. I think a big part of what we do in student services is, appreciative advising would call it disarming. So like, how are you approaching a student in order to build a relationship, to start a relationship? And I think also understanding that relationships, as we all know, work at different paces depending on who you are, who that student is. Can you find that common factor? Sometimes for some students, based on who you are and again who they are, that could take semesters long. Other students, it could be the fact that you have a nice conversation with someone by noticing again their shoes or their shirt, and then having that as a kickoff point to build trust quickly. But that does vary across the board. I think one thing we have to think when we're working with underprepared students, and this is what Anthony Jack said, the offer of the privileged poor. He mentions that like letting people know that you're not burdening us with coming to us with your concerns. You're not burdening us by asking us for help. It's our role and our responsibility to help you. Now that all gets thrown out the window if we don't follow up, which is on us. So I think at times, sometimes we say the right words, but we don't follow up in the manner in which we should. So I think that is also with certain people, you only get one chance, right? Like, so if you're going to slight someone in any way, even if it's not a slight from your end, but a slight on their end, it's done. So I think being honest with yourself and making sure we follow up and do what we're supposed to be doing, I think that's the way to get started. That's not even anything else. That's just the foundation on how to get started in these conversations.
I also think that we have to start that first with a lot of students because either they're shy or they're scared. So we have to start engaging them and talking to them and inviting them in. I've found that with a lot of students throughout the years. Like if you're doing something and you need help, they might not necessarily volunteer, but if you ask them if they want to help, they're like, oh, sure. So it's like we maybe need to make the initial step in engaging them and asking what they need. Sometimes it's really difficult to ask for help. So we have to ask them if we can help them. And a lot of times when we get calls at the center, people will preface things with saying, I know this is a stupid question. And it's like, it's not a stupid question if you don't understand something or need some help, so you try to reassure them that it's not, and whatever you're going to ask me isn't a stupid question, because maybe you don't understand, how to do this or where to find your syllabus on JetNet, etc.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, Ariel, go ahead, please.
I was just gonna say, as an instructor, I noticed since I've been doing asynchronous courses online that students kind of just feel disconnected. They don't feel like connected with each other, and let alone with me as an instructor. And so one thing that I have the ability to do this semester is I embedded in the course in their first introduction for participation is that they have to set up a 15-minute meeting with me. And so I just have them set up a Calendly link like they're used to with their navigator. So it's the same system. It's nothing new for them. And it's just to say, hi, how are you? Introduce myself, see what they're worried about in the course. A big thing is time management, I've noticed. And so this semester, a difference that I made is I went through the course and estimated how many hours each week they'll need to spend on specifically their homework. And then I put, hey, it might take longer if you want to practice and really excel at these things. But at a minimum, if you're having a hard week, you need to plan at least 7 hours, at least 8 hours this week. But always to aim for the goal of 15 because I have a 3-credit course.
I like that, Ariel. The more guidance you can give them, I think the better from the very start. I send out before the week the class starts, I send out a list of several things they can do to get ahead. And, if people want to do it, there's always several that do, and it helps them a lot. But I ask them as their first assignment to send me an email with a proper format, because that's a very important part of communication, rather than saying, hey, prof, or, just tell them the formatting. And then I ask them to answer 2 questions. One is, what are they most looking forward to in the class? And I'm the only one who sees this, and I tell them that. What are you looking most forward to in the class? And what is your biggest challenge or 2? And so, and I follow up on that, and I remember that challenge in the next few weeks, so that if I see them not participating, I can send something to them. And if I don't get those introductions in my inbox by the end of the middle of that first week, well, by about the middle of the first week, I email them. And I know that takes time. I don't have 6 classes like some of you do. So I have to say that does take a little bit of time, but I think it really starts building a connection with them from the get-go. It's worth it sometimes.
I've noticed that I have a lot of students who, things come up every week, something will prevent them from getting their work done. And there were a couple of instances where last summer and in the fall, I had some students who just like missed an exam. And I know some non-Jackson College professors who are a little bit more strict in terms of like how this works. And I was having a conversation with them about like, how they approach that kind of situation. And they were saying, well, if they miss an exam, they miss an exam, whatever. But I found that student success went up so much more if you just like reached out to the student and asked them, hey, what happened? What can I do to help you? Can I reopen this exam for you? I'm happy to do this for you if you have any extra time this week. And it ended up being that every student that I reached out to that this happened with, and I would say, a handful of students, they missed exams over the course of semester last summer and during the fall. And every single one of them wanted me to open the exam again, and they ended up, doing quite well. So I think just, being aware that there are a lot of issues that may be going on outside of the classroom that can prevent students from doing this, or maybe they're like nervous about contacting you in advance. They think you're going to be mad at them or something. Like they don't know what their teachers are like. But if you just reach out to them and insist that you want them to succeed, no matter what their circumstance, I think that could be helpful. Obviously, that's not going to be the same for every professor in every classroom, but if you have the ability to do that, I think it's really important.
Jessica, I'll follow up on that, saying it's a really good point. I'm one that has students in the first semester, second semester, third semester. And even with my adjuncts, I had an adjunct teaching our law and ethics class in the fall. And I've always taught that, but I was teaching SEM in the fall. So she was teaching it and she was having trouble with students not handing things in. And she's like, so do I just give them zeros? I'm like, you have to remember this may be their very first college course. So because of that, we're going to work with them a little more. But we follow that up with, just know that, we're a little more lax in this first semester, but as you continue on in your program courses, there's no exceptions because we want them to get prepared for what they're going to face in the field, working in a medical practice and what's expected of them. And we always use the example, if you don't have the room ready for the doctor because you got busy or didn't have time, that's a problem. So, in the beginning, though, that also increases their confidence level because they don't have that fear as much, I think, and it helps us build a relationship with them. And I know Ariel can attest to this too with the HOC 150 class, because often, again, students in the beginning, and they do have issues, and we just, we have to work with them, and then we, get mean later. But once they get comfortable with us, then we can, be mean and nasty. Kidding, we aren't.
So I think it's a pretty good conversation overall, but I would really like Monica and Sandy and everyone and Peter as well to kind of talk about like what they have available. And when you see a student that's struggling, and if it's a writing thing, send them to the writing fellows and the writing instructors. But just kind of a little bit more of what everyone, what their role is and what they can offer for faculty and how they can be supportive from the staff. And Monica, yes, I am good with that. Let me figure out how to do it though. I have my iPad and my computer going, and so
you're good. I think I can. I see the green button, so the way the Zoom is set up, I believe I can share. If you guys would be so obliged, I will just simply take you to our web page as it's been recently revamped. And then I would also like to give Peter an opportunity to brag about our amazing TRIO program. Can you all see that? Okay, good. I see Ariel nodding. I can't see anyone else. So this is our Center for Student Success page, which most of you are probably familiar with. However, since we went remote back in March, Ariel, Carissa, Sandy D, all the ladies have been working really hard on how can we be more informative to our students, given that we're now remote, and our faculty, staff, administrators, etc. So a few things I wanted to point out. We now have an actual Writing Center page. Did that transition for you guys? So you can see the Writing Center. So now when a student or someone is referred to the Writing Center, you'll see a brief introduction, but then you'll also see actual pictures next to the names of the adjunct faculty that work in our Writing Center. A few of whom I know are on the call. I know Sandy Schultz is on the call. Oh, look at her picture. She's so lovely. They're all wonderful. They each have different personalities and things that they bring to the table to connect with students. So each of them all have their own following, if that makes sense. You know, Kim is a much different personality than Virginia per se, and that's a good thing. I'm so proud of our Writing Center because they all bring something different. So that's our Writing Center. We also handle tutoring in a very much an online and on-demand way now. So once again, given that we're remote, a significant portion of our tutoring has now moved to evening and weekends for students because that's more convenient for them, whether they're working or they have other life things going on. So when you direct students to this online tutoring page, they can find the course that they need, whether it's in the search or they just scroll. And then they can actually click right on. So let's say they need Bio 132 help, and they either know Abigail Frew or Sandy D has, helped them make this first connection for their tutoring. They can select that. And then it's through what we've mentioned a few times, which is called Calendly, which is something that all students are familiar with, given that that's how they connect with their navigators. And they can set up a 30-minute appointment, hour-long appointment, and they can see exactly when, if they want to make it for, next Saturday, they can do that. If they want to do it immediately that night, they can do that. So that's our online tutoring. I also wanted to point out that we completely revamped our testing lab page. So this is very important for faculty in the room that need to utilize the testing lab if there's any one-offs of a student that missed an exam, or they need help with any proctoring type things. Ariel's on the call, so if I forget anything, jump in. But we now have a complete list of what an instructor can go to know what to do now, because it is completely different now that we're remote. And then also it speaks to the course placement piece, and then special accommodations, what to bring. And then we have, like I mentioned before, the instructor information page. So that is that.
The only thing I'll jump in and say, Monica, is that for most of you who don't know, Carissa Shea is in this phone call or in the Zoom call. She is a new testing lab proctor. She took over for Lana. I'm just her right-hand gal. I'm a lot of people's right-hand gal.
Oh,
okay.
I'm sorry, Carissa. I did not see you in here.
That's all right. Just be looking to, Carissa will be sending you guys out a newsletter as she does every semester with updates about the testing lab and any great information you need to know.
Thank you. Yes. So Ariel is very much our behind the scenes floater, guru, tech wizard, master of nothing and everything, if that makes sense. So she has very much become part of our team, and we're very appreciative. And Carissa is now our new Lana, if you wanted to think of it in that terms. Lana very deservedly retired, and Carissa took over, and she's been doing amazing work. And she was very much a part of revamping that testing lab page. Also, supplemental instruction, again, is pretty much the same in that you can see the SI schedule, how to, like it gives the little intro on what SI is. It's just virtual now. In terms of their SI sessions, rather. I should have explained that. Okay. So in addition, I will go ahead and, Peter, if you want to jump in and speak to Trio, I can go ahead and bring that page up just so they have a visual if you wanted to pipe in. I don't know if he's still on. I can't see everyone.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here. I was
Okay.
muted. I was trying to.
I couldn't
Yeah.
see everyone. Thank you, Peter.
No problem. Thank you for going to our page. Yeah, thank you for inviting me to this session as well. I'll be very brief. I won't take up too much people's time. But going back to the initial question, kind of led the discussion in terms of what is a underprepared student and what the conversation is about. The role of TRIO is actually twofold, right? One is to meet the underprepared student. We serve particularly first generation Pell eligible and differently able students or neurologically diverse students, etc. Our job is to get every student who's eligible for our program that comes into our program and serve them exactly where they are. And we are a fairly 100% fairly funded program that Jackson College has for the new 5-year period. The second role we do is ask the reverse question. Is Jackson College a student-ready campus? Are we prepared to accept students that are coming to a campus, no matter what their background is, especially being an open access institution? And so on the front facing, we work directly with students, provide different services such as tutoring, mentoring, advising, as we have their own navigator that serves a smaller subset of students who's able to provide more time towards those students. Typically, when we're not virtual, we do like on-campus 4-year college visits and go on trips and do different programming and things of that nature. We're starting some new collaborations with Multicultural. 2 great initiatives we have coming up. We've done a great collaboration with all of housing, the math department, as well as foundations to provide a living learning community for our students. So we'll be launching a living learning community starting next fall with somewhere between 15 to 30 students to start off with. And they'll all be taking elite courses. By that, I be meaning they'll all be taking Math 130 and SEM 140 together as a cohort. And we're trying to build that to increase the number of students who are able to come into a cohort community-based model for our TRIO program. Secondly, we're also going to have a summer symposium this year, which is going to be a week that's going to run concurrently with Ready Set Jet, except we're going to be serving students who are returning TRIO students, returning Jackson students, and provide that academic supplement, provide that personal professional development, and to provide them a chance to grow as leaders with some civically minded activities. And so again, TRIO, we're a program that serves our first generation, our Pell eligible, and our differently able students. And what we're able to provide is intentional one-on-one assistance with a concerted group of students with a staff that's been trained and dedicated to support these students specifically. And as well on the back end, provide some great initiatives for our students, but make sure that we are questioning ourselves as a program and working with faculty and staff, upper administration, to ensure that Jackson College as a whole is prepared to serve any student that walks through our doors. And so we're excited to continuously work with the rest of the faculty that's on here. I'm sure individuals who've been here for a while have gotten a lot of those emails from either Sheila or Melissa in the past, just asking how TRIO students are doing in their classes. And we want to continue that trend going forward. We want to make sure that we're tapped in with the students that we serve. That way we're able to make sure that they're supported and we can increase the options and opportunities we have to more students on Jackson College's campus. So I guess I said a lot, but send students our way if you think they might be eligible. Send them to our website.
Peter, are there current openings in TRIO?
There's always openings. We're always always willing to serve and help out students, even if we were quote unquote at capacity. I'll be finding new ways to support those students. The benefit is my position is split, so I have no problem working with any and all students that come through our door. And yeah, so if you have any students you feel like could benefit from additional tutoring, additional support and mentoring, if you feel like students need a little bit more one-on-one time for any reason, feel free to send them our way. And I look forward to working more diligently to get more information out to the rest of the faculty about the great opportunities we have for all students, to make sure that you know that we're a reliable source that you can send students our way so we can support them.
Thank you, Peter.
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, if any of your students ever, TRIO is a great program. I was in TRIO at JC and then went on to Adrian College, and then at U of M, I also was part of a what was part of Upward Bound and everything. So it is a great opportunity, and definitely recommending students, any student you know that if you hear they're first generation or anything like that, point them that direction because it's a great opportunity. My heathens are home, so it'll be fun.
I'll just jump in and say one last piece about the CSS for instructors. We had an instructor reach out last semester who was concerned with one of their students just having difficulties staying organized in those kind of situations. And so I had the pleasure to work with her twice a week. So the student wanted, she said, hey, I do need this help. You know, I'm glad my instructor reached out. And so every Monday we did a Zoom call for about a half hour, and it was just like, hey, what are your assignments this week? How can I help? And then halfway through the week, I would check in and I would say, hey, did you get that finished? Did you get that completed? Is there anything I can assist you with? Because she just struggled with going between the different programs because the instructor used more than just JetNet. So doing the back and forth, getting those done. And so the CSS is happy to do that as well. Just walk through instructions with students. Sometimes that's just a big piece. And a lot of times they just need it for a week or two and they get the hang of it and they're good to go. This particular student we worked with for the majority of the semester, and she did fairly well. So just think that that option is out there as well if, you know, we do more than just specific tutoring for a specific course.
And now that Ariel, I'm going to piggyback that she said about organizing and things like that. The women of the Writing Center can also help students set up study plans and organize. I mean, that's maybe, you know, like make a calendar or something to get themselves organized as to how much time they need to study, when they need to study, how much time they need to devote to things. They can also help with testing anxiety. So there's a lot of things that we can do and a lot of things that we offer students. So once again, if you would go to our CSS homepages on our website, you could see the different services we offer. And also if a student comes up to you and said that they have accommodations in high school, please refer them to us because we can get them set up with accommodations in college.
Thank you for adding that, ladies. I think that often is, it's not a bad misconception. It's just incorrect that CSS is just tutoring. There's so much more that goes on, and the ladies in the Writing Center can speak to that more. But every day is different. Every student's need is different, and so it's not always just grammar or citing, you know, works cited page or 131 or 132. It's a speech paper or help with other things, organization, like Sandy spoke to. So yeah, please send them their way. They're so good with students. I know that this is going to sound hokey, but I am so blessed with the best team. They truly are, you know, TCS squared, whatever. I feel like I'm being too hokey, but they really do care about students, and you can't go wrong by referring a student to them.
Sure, and no way, hopefully it didn't sound as though we're all part of CSS. So if you feel like a student is eligible for TRIO, but feel like they can get the assistance from CSS, feel free to send them there first. We work collaboratively with everybody as part, you know, the Writing Center and tutoring and et cetera from CSS. That way that any student walks through their doors as well, you know, or I guess virtually, will also hear about our program. So as long as they're getting towards CSS, we're going to connect with the students to make sure we find a way to support them. Additionally, you know, TRIO, we also have specific funds that give out grant scholarships and technology assistance to students. So we feel like a student's, I know we talked earlier about like financial needs being part of what makes a student unprepared potentially. We also have aid specifically granted to us to provide financial assistance to students. I just want to make sure I put that out there as well.
Can I put I don't know, an idea out there? I'm curious, since we have so many folks from CSS and so many facets of CSS here, what are some things that faculty can do to help you meet students' needs in CSS better? Are there some things that we could do, help with, you know, give, provide, prepare? I mean, even something as simple as, you know, a glossary of terms for a particular course that might be helpful. I don't know. I'm just coming up with ideas. What might be helpful in working with underprepared students on your end from faculty? I mean, just to make more work for us, because that's what I like to do. But
I don't speak for everyone, but I think to jump in as far would be helpful from faculty is just your response times. I know a lot of faculty members have other full-time jobs and other things that they're doing, but if you could at least, that's a big issue that we run into instructors and say, hey, the student's having this, and that. Is there anything we can do? And we kind of don't hear anything. And even if it's just an email to say, hey, I received this, I'm looking into what I can do to help you and the student, just a response in general. Because students are always like, hey, what do I do? And we're like, well, we reached out, and, it kind of can fall flat. So I just think responses from instructors are number one. And from a testing lab perspective as well, always responses from instructors are always number one.
Are these emails or emails that faculty and students are copied on, or is this just between staff and faculty?
I think it depends on the situation, what the student needs, what the student requests, whether the student is copied on the email as well. Sometimes it can be easier if the student isn't CC'd on the email, just to have a clear line of communication and everyone feels more comfortable with sharing. We provide that for the student as well as the instructor.
Virginia, I think you touched on this before, or maybe it was Kim. I can't recall who was speaking to it, but the rubric piece and the, if the syllabus is detailed and clear, then that make their jobs easier in terms of connecting this or directing the student in the right path. Am I articulating that properly, V? Okay.
Yeah, and I think that I know last semester I had some students that came for writing help, and I just emailed directly like Janet or Nina because the student might not have, well, I don't know, and we would look at the rubric, or I have this piece, I'm supposed to read this thing, I can't access it, all of those things. And for example, use Nina's for example, I just emailed her and said, hi, I'm working with this student. We need to go over this article for this paper. Is there any way you could get me a copy of it? And Nina was just boom, right on it. And it really made it easy to work with that student and to reassure that student that, we were here to help them, that student to complete their assignment and to understand what that assignment was. So, anytime that the faculty can give us feedback, that's a real positive thing, because it helps us hone and help the student fulfill the requirements for your particular assignment and your particular class.
All right, crickets. All right, well, if no one has anything else, I could let you guys go. But I will be sending out an email to everybody that was here today, just to kind of, touch base and see if there's any other ideas and send out the resources. We have all the links for everything put together already. So I will send that all out to everybody. And that way faculty members have the right people, the right names, the right emails, and all of that. But I would like to thank everybody from CSS and Trio and testing and everyone under the sun, and our wonderful Nate, and everybody for joining us today, though. But thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.